We both were active investors ourselves. We did feel like we were the only women there. And not that we can't hold our own, but there is something very special and empowering and supportive when you get a group of women together that are like-minded, that are all driven and want the same things out of life, right? Share the same values. I never really even considered real estate as a path or as an investment. And then that really launched me into buying our first property. And we took dilapidated properties and developed them and renovated them. We did feel like we weren't just renovating property, we were improving the community. Real estate investment has that ability, which I think is really a beautiful thing, making money and also making a difference. There is this element of empowering people in the process, right? You could change a community, improve a community, but it is about impacting people. So tap into the greatness you already have.
Welcome back to another episode of Invest in Rome. I'm your host, Dear No. You know what I keep hearing from women who want to start investing or start doing real estate? Things like, I'm not sure this is a good time. It's too risky. I don't know where to start. I'm not sure I'm ready. But here's the truth. Waiting until you feel ready is exactly what keeps you stuck. Today's guest, Liz Faircloth, co-founder of the Real Estate InvestHER, is on a mission to change that. She's helping women to stop playing small, build wealth, and to own it. Because it's not just about real estate, it's about power, confidence, and rewriting what's possible. Welcome to the show, Liz. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so excited.
Dear, thank you so much for having me. So exciting to be here and see you again. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm so excited, and I'm so excited for you to be on, because the investor community for me has truly been like one of the most pivotal parts for me in my real estate journey. And I'm sure it has been for so many women. It's so awesome.
Thank you. Well, we've poured ourselves into it, and you've been a member of it, a part of it, and leading a meetup along the way. And we just have done a lot of great things, and we're going to continue to do the same for years to come. So we got some really cool things happening, but it's all about helping women take control of their financial future, right? And that looks so differently to so many women, but it's about really supporting women on that journey.
I found an article on entrepreneur.com with you on it. And it had a quote on there, and you had mentioned going to a conference and realizing in a room of 300 people that only 10 of them were women. What did that feel like? Was that the start of an Investor Con?
Yeah. So that was certainly an inspiration to a lot of the work we've done. For Andres and I, we were, just to rewind a little bit, we both were active investors ourselves. And then we came together, became very good friends, and started sharing and supporting each other along the way. And then we'd be meeting together and partnering together on a number of projects, some flips and new construction outside of Philadelphia. And we go to events, and we did feel like we were the only women there, whether it was a meetup, whether it was a conference, whether it was a, business event, if you will. We always felt like we were, one of a few women there. And not that we can't hold our own. I have no problem talking to whomever about anything, to be perfectly frank. But there is something very special and empowering and supportive when you get a group of women together that are like-minded, that are all driven and want the same things out of life, right? Share the same value set. And that one particular conference that you're kind of referring to, we actually pulled together the tables because the women were like, oh, it'd be great to get connected to each other and to share, where we are in our businesses and our real estate portfolio, growth. And everyone around that table was just so really appreciating the time. Like, women want more of this. And so we knew we wanted more of it. And what that really launched a podcast, which is our InvestHER show. It's over 500 episodes now. It's over 1 million downloads 8 years later, right? And that really created this community that we have now of InvestHER. But it's really about creating the space for women to give and get the support they want to take control of their financial future and quite honestly, create the lives that they want, right? That's what it's all about. It's not just about more doors or more fill in the blank.
I have a background in a degree in social work, I was reading. And now that you have a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio and you're coaching women, building wealth through real estate and empowering women, how has that background in social work helped you in making this mission for Investor?
It's an interesting piece where people are like, you're a social worker as a background. I actually really wanted to open my own practice. That's why I got my master's degree in social work. My undergrad was in psych. And I remember just always wanting to support people on their journey. And at that point, it wasn't real estate necessarily, but it was just their life, right? Their path, their journey. And when I got introduced to Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I never really even considered real estate as a path or as an investment. And then that really launched me and my then boyfriend buying our first property. But I think the social work value set, I'll call it, it has certainly translated into everything I've done. First with my husband, because we actually started investing in Trenton, New Jersey. That's where we got our start early on 20 years ago. And we took dilapidated properties and developed them and renovated them. We did feel like we weren't just renovating property, we were improving the community. We really felt that we didn't want to be part of anything that we didn't feel like we weren't in really improving the community. I think that real estate investment has that ability, which I think is really a beautiful thing, making money and also making a difference. Then that translated so kind of effortlessly in a sense with, transitioning with InvestHER. At the time that I joined, Andres and I came together and really launching InvestHER, I loved real estate. I loved the work we were doing in different communities. But even I had just my first son, my first child, my son, Zach, and something was still missing. There was this element of empowering people in the process, right? You could change a community, improve a community, but it is about impacting people. Now we were impacting the homeowners and the folks that were actually our tenants. With Andressa, we really wanted to be on the front lines in a sense of creating something where we're actually impacting the people investing in the real estate. And women has always, I'm obviously a female, but I've always been very connected to whether it's little girls or older women I've just been always wanting to, create that safe space for women. And I've done that in different parts of my life, whether it's corporate or not. So, InvestHER kind of pulled together all these interesting pieces of my social work background in a sense. And it is about community now more than ever, even more than 8 years ago when we started, which started on a hunch, now is actually an enormous opportunity to support women in this space because of women making financial decisions, right? Women being able to make those financial decisions on their own, not relying on anyone else.
Sometimes women, though, can be risk adverse. And there's a fact, it says so on your website, that sometimes women, when they become confident, can actually outperform men as successful investors. But what do you think is like holding them back? Is it like self-doubt? Is it the system? Is it sexism? Is it?
It's probably all of those things. Honestly, it's a big conversation to dissect. But here are some of the stats that I will say, because what's fascinating now is that more and more in the next 3 to 5 years, women are controlling more and more wealth for a lot of different reasons, right? Inheritance, they're coming into more wealth, creating more wealth for themselves. So there's a lot of reasons for it. And there's tons of research happening that there's an enormous wealth transfer, the great wealth transfer that's happening. While that's happening, literally, and that has nothing to do with me or InvestHER, that's literally this what's happening, at least in the United States. Women's confidence when it comes to making investing decisions is less than making decisions when it comes to managing money. Managing money is actually very high. And if you polled a lot of probably women, they're actually very comfortable managing the checkbook, managing the money that they have. But when it comes to investing decisions, their confidence is less. So why is that? I mean, again, there's a long list of why. I personally don't believe, and what I've seen is that women are any less confident. The women that are in our community are actually quite confident women. They're very driven women. These are not women who are not confident in their life. But I do believe that if you go to like an event and you hear what women are talking about, and then you go up, and again, totally traditional, but then you go into circles of men, and I'm being super stereotypical right now, and I know I'm being general, but I experience it where women are talking about certain things, men are talking about other things. And the women in our community, right, in InvestHER, especially like an investor con, they're talking about HELOCs, they're talking about their next deal, they're talking about raising capital. It's like music to my ears, and you and I were just chatting before this started about our projects. Like I could talk about that all day. I think the exposure and the exposure to what we're exposing to young girls is different than what we expose to young men. So I do think it starts then. And I think there's a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of scripts that are played out in our world because of social norms and what society expects and doesn't expect. And there's a lot of that. But I don't think it's because women aren't effective as investors. I don't think it's because they're not actually confident, because they are. I think it's exposure and community, and then being around other women like them who are doing it. Just to give an example, if I relied on the women that the community I live in, and I relied on these women that are my neighbors, lovely, lovely people, love them dearly. But if I relied on them to give me investment advice, I wouldn't have anyone to go to. I don't, knock on their doors to help me about making an entrepreneurial decision or a new business venture decision. But I do I know women to go to for those decisions. So it's expanding the circle, dear. I think that's the key, is that you may not know those women, but it doesn't mean those women don't exist. And then how do I get around them and start really getting in community with them? So we're all kind of growing our wealth together versus by ourselves, or just like, oh, we don't talk about those things.
Yeah, and you've talking about community. I mean, you've really made such a huge investors, such a huge community. I mean, I would say it is a movement now, right? It has supported so many women in their journey to investing in real estate just through the networking and connection. When you think about that, what is maybe the legacy you think of maybe when you're gone after all this?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
That's what I try to do on this podcast.
Oh my God, you're doing it. No, I think it's funny, right? People often create communities, quote unquote communities, so they can get more investors for their deals, or so they have people to follow them, or to fill in the blank. When Andressa and I came together, we were very, very clear that the intent was that it wasn't about her and I. And honestly, we went to our own conference a couple of years ago. This will be now our 5th conference in next June. We went to our own conference and a woman came up to us. And she said, because I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer it in this answer. And she came up to us. She said, oh, where are you guys from? Me and Andressa were just kind of meeting at a table. And this is a true story. I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. We're both from Pennsylvania. She goes, that's great. I'm from Minnesota. We're like, that's great. What are you involved in? What are you up to? Oh, I have a handful of commercial properties. What do you guys invest in? And then we kept going and talking to her. And she's like, well, I didn't catch your names. What were your names again? I said, oh, my name's Liz and this is Andressa. She goes, Liz. Andressa. Oh my God, you guys host something. But I honestly, it was after 10 minutes of talking to her. She came to the conference, had no idea really who we were, did not come to the conference, obviously, because of us. And I said, I love that. I really do. I love that, because this community isn't about me or her. And I don't even get recognized at my own conference that I'm hosting. I really embrace that, because it isn't about me or her or anyone. It's about the women you're going to meet, your peers, the women that are a few steps behind you, women who are 5 steps ahead of you, and really kind of putting your hand out or your hand up and really supporting each other on that journey. I think that's the legacy, right? That's what it's about. I mean, I've had so many women come up to me, and especially like in InvestHER, it becomes almost like a reunion, right? Women are coming back every year and they'll be like, oh my God, I was here last year and I had 4 properties. I just met a woman a couple of weeks ago at another event. She goes, Liz, I tell everyone to come to InvestHER. It's the only conference they should go to. I've said, thank you. You're a sweetheart. She goes, no, I mean it. I came to InvestHER. I had 5 properties. She goes, I've now exceeded like 10 because of some of the things that I put into place from the conference last year. So that's awesome. And then we started talking about what. She goes, listen, it wasn't about my own money, because I had plateaued utilizing my own money. And then she just shared with me what she learned and how she applied it. Just like music to my ears. That's really why I do what I do. And you work hard to fulfill a mission that I don't know if every single woman in the world is going to take control of their financial future, but that's a big vision, right? And I see my daughter, who's 8, who I want to see that next generation stop talking about Sephora. No offense to Sephora. I shop there as well. But, I see a lot of 8 to 10-year-olds more concerned about the makeup and the skincare than investing. And obviously that's their age, but still it starts then. So I talk to my daughter all the time, right, about investing versus just.
What do you say? I'm always trying to figure that out. And
I think the first thing that I've done very intentionally, right? Because kids are going to pick up anything you do, say, don't say, right? It's all happening, right? I said, that's why therapy is created. So my kids can go to therapy one day. No, but I do. I believe in therapy. I have a therapist and I do believe it helps get you really connected to your best self. But with my daughter, especially, and my son, but my daughter, I've been very mindful of her confidence. I think she came out as a confident sort of kid, but I've been very intentional with moments to teach her. And you don't have to go create the moments. For example, we were at this movie theater and watching this animated movie, her and I, about a year ago. And 10 minutes in, I was like, I have no idea what's going on in this movie. If I don't know what's going on in this movie, my daughter doesn't know what's going on. Time's short. I'm not going to wait 2 hours of a movie I just paid for to sit and be upset, right? Time's fleeting. So I looked at her. I said, are you enjoying this movie? She goes, no. I said, I'm not either. She goes, all right, let's leave then. I said, that sounds like a great idea. So we get out. I said, before we leave, why don't we go talk to the manager? She's like, about what? I said, well, let her know about our experience and how honestly, the coming attraction of what we watched didn't seem like what we were watching on the screen. I want to see if I can get my money back. She goes, I don't know about that, Mom. Like, I want to ask. Let's see. I come here all the time. I'm a valued customer. Let me try. So she came up with me. She goes, shaking her head. I'm like, this is about asking for what you want. So I went up to the woman. I gave her my spiel. So listen, I don't mean to make a big deal of this, but I come all the time with my daughter, and this movie was really awful. Is there anything you could do for me so I can come back another time with my daughter to watch another movie? She goes, no problem. I'll give you 2 complimentary tickets. So she looked at me. She's like, and she just like smiled and shook her head. But I'm teaching her about, asking for what you want and need, and who knows, right? So is that a real estate investing lesson? No. But are you going to need to know how to use that skill if you're going to be a successful, really anything, right? And especially in business, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, you have to speak up and not just take whatever you get. So I'm teaching her that in a very nice way, right? I'm not like this super direct person that's like, I'm a little more with ease, but I usually get what I want too.
Setting a good example. That is a good
Trying
life
to.
lesson. Have to ask for what you want. I tell that to my son also. You need to go up and you need to ask.
That's the truth.
So you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's so funny because I feel like that's the real investor Bible that I hear a lot of in myself. That's how I got started because I read that book. I sometimes think about what if it was rewritten from a woman's story. Instead, it's called Rich Mom, Poor Mom, Rich Mom, Wise,
Yeah.
Rich Mom, Wise Mom. And the kind of lessons that would be in there. I think one of the lessons is that rich invent money. How would you rewrite it? Or what lessons would we add as women investors besides thinking of like assets and liabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, assets and liabilities is an interesting concept, right? Because assets and liabilities go beyond the money in your bank account. They go beyond the actual physical assets that you have. It's actually your mindset. And I think I've learned this now in my 40s, but a lot of women struggle with time. They're doing so much, right? There are usually these are very driven, ambitious women inside the community, whether they're new to investing or whether they're growing their portfolio. We have a lot of women growing their portfolio, and time, not that I'm not going to even say time management, but doing it all themselves. Women have like a PhD in relying on themselves to get things done. And I do think that needs to get rewritten. I want my daughter, Sam, to learn how to get things done and not have to do it all herself. I don't want her to wait till she's in her 40s to figure that out when she's burnt out or overwhelmed or running around like a chicken without a head. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that for her. That's the rewriting of how do you get a lot done, live life on your own terms, create the wealth that you want to create, spend the time you want with your family, and not feel so like burnt at the end of the day where you're like, oh, I have to do this over again. And I think a lot of women are learning that, right? 30 to 55 age range. They're learning that, but that would be something that could get rewritten. I think women unapologetically not dimming their light. That is something that has to get rewritten as a kid. I say this all the time, right? I go to a conference and I literally I was speaking at the conference. A man came up to me, and again, I love men. I have nothing against men. They're amazing. All right. I'll just put that aside. However, in this situation, guy came up to me. He's like, loved your talk. I said, that's great. I said, and what are you doing? And what are you involved in? I don't say how many doors you own because I don't really care about that. But I just like, what are you doing? What's your business look like? Just to kind of get some conversation going. He's like, I am killing it. I said, that's great. Good for you. That's lovely to hear the way he said it. And he's like, I have 5 properties and I am doing so good. I'm just like knocking it out of the park. I said, good for you. He's like, and then he went on his way. The same day, that same conference, woman came up to me. We did like a women's meetup, and she's like, thanks so much for that. I really got a lot out of that. I said, that's great. I said, what are you doing? What are you involved in? Oh, I just getting started. I just have 5 properties. So one demeanor, and I'm not joking. I wish that was a made up story. That is not. It was a real conference, 2 real conversations I had with 2 different people. And I do think there's something along the way, right? There's this like line that women or girls are learning about what's confidence, what's arrogance, dim your light so you can just make sure everyone feels okay with you. If I can shout one thing from the rooftop, we really got to encourage women, especially younger girls, but women, to stop dimming their light. Just stop. Don't say just. You're not getting started if you have 5 properties. One thinks they're the next real estate mogul. He thought he should be teaching everybody about real estate. And the other woman thought she should, and just her demeanor was quiet. It wasn't confident. I'm not saying oversell, but
You gotta
if we
own
can,
it.
if we can
Own it.
rewrite that, I know I could have done that differently when I got started. And I think I dimmed my light for too long. And I just don't, I think women are really amazing, and they're handling it all. And I just got to stop dimming their light. So that's my biggest thing I'd love to rewrite. If we're going to rewrite something, right, is the dimming the light, stop being apologetic, put your boundaries up, say no a lot more than you say yes. Sorry, I mean, these are words that we got to get out of our language. So those are a few things that come to mind.
And I'm super guilty of that. Like both the time and
I am too. I wish I wasn't.
I know. And then trying to be really modest because you don't want to seem obnoxious or, overbearing. Such a thing from women.
It is a thing. It is a thing. What was the clip from the Barbie movie, right? It was such a great clip at the end. I forget the actress's name, but she gave that kind of monologue about, you're damned here, you're damned there. It's like this very interesting, you're supposed to be so, comforting yet bold. And it's just, there's a lot of mixed messages. And so then the question is like, for the girls that are in your life and, my nieces and, and my daughter, it's like, what am I trying to teach them? Of course, there's this kind of comforting. I have this ability to like comfort, and they'll come to me for more comfort than my husband. Certainly call that gender roles, calls that personality. I mean, you can call that a lot of different things, right? And to be bold and to be kind of unapologetic and to take risks. They're getting that from both of us. That's not just, that narrative isn't just with my husband by any means, right? So it depends on everyone, but I do think being mindful and intentional of, look, what do you want to pass along to the women, to the other moms? And I do talk about my deals and my projects, not ad nauseum to someone who isn't interested, but they know what I'm doing, certainly. And they'll come to me with questions about real estate, and I want them to, right?
So on the flip side, what do you think women bring to the table that perhaps
so much
in terms of investing, in terms of leadership and all the things?
Yeah, I think there's so much, right? I really do. I think women have so many more advantages. Number one, creating win-win. Real estate is all about creating a win-win. It really comes down to that, whether you're buying a house from a seller, whether you're negotiating with the bank, whether you're just trying to figure out how to deal with a leak. I mean, really keep going, right? With tenant management, whether it's all the different things that come up in this business. It's very multifaceted. It's not this one linear, this is your exact customer, right? Your customers are all different types of people, your lenders, your tenants, your partners. So I do think women have an advantage of creating this like ability to have kind of come from things as a win-win perspective, not win-lose. I think women naturally do that. Now, again, sometimes to their detriment, where they'll give more away than they should. I've seen that, but I do think the advantage is that there is a win-win aspect where they're really seeking to solve a homeowner's problem and get a great deal for themselves. Both those things can mutually exist. And I see women being able to do that in a way that just makes sense for everyone. So that's number one. I think two, communication. Women, I see a lot of women in our community are more communicative. They're sharing more. They're connecting more. That goes a long way, especially with building relationships. That goes a long way with people keeping you in mind for different opportunities, different deals. You start your career and you're waiting for opportunities to come to you. And then you're growing your kind of your portfolio, and then opportunities are to come to you. So you have to say no more than yes. And so women are able to do that and be at the helm of that because they're able to kind of extend themselves and build those relationships. I think the cautiousness that I see, and not every woman's cautious, right? We're being super general, but I do see more women probably on the cautious side. That is actually a benefit. That is a benefit in a lot of ways because, especially now, right? Interest rates the way they are, take just the multifamily space. When you buy a property, when you buy an opportunity right now, you're not going to you can't underwrite as though everything's going to go the way you think it's going to go. It's just that
Right.
no one's winning in real estate investing right now. That's underwriting that way. Everyone's putting in contingencies. I think it's going to take me 12 months. Great. Put another 6 months on there. You just don't know. Right now, it makes sense to be conservative. And I think women are winning. If they're investing right now, they're winning because their cautiousness will serve them well, especially now. Anytime, because I've been at this a long time. However, now more than ever, you have to be more mitigating the risk, and women can do that. They come at things with multiple options. So those are, I can keep going, but those are top of mind advantages.
Okay, so you mentioned, so you started talking about multifamily, and I did want to dive into real estate. What is now your current strategy? Because you've done a lot of multifamily. You've done a lot of things, renovations, multifamily. What's the strategy now in our current market? What are the things that are you looking at? Are you buying? Are you holding? What is your perception right now?
I think there's a lot happening, and it depends on what I love about real estate. Let's start there. What I love about real estate is that it is hyper local, right? It is hyper market driven. So yes, their interest rates is not hyper local. It's affecting everyone. And though the local economy, the local market that you're in or looking at has a different kind of thermostat on what is working in that area. So I'm doing a ground up, for example, right? I'm doing a ground up construction project in the town that I live in. I haven't invested locally. I haven't done a local project. However, an opportunity came up and we ran our numbers. And for a lot of reasons, we said, let's do something locally. We had to build a team that was missing, but we built the team and we're able to move forward, and we're in the project now. So we had to conservatively underwrite. However, I do know the market like the palm of my hand. And so I mitigated my risk by that and building the right realtor who knows the market as well, the right contractor, right, the right architect, the right banker, everything, right insurance agent. I originally got a quote of $40,000. I'm like, what are you insuring for $40,000? I said, no, thank you. And then talked to another one of our.
Why was it so high? $40,000 for.
Oh, they had this whole thing where they were valuing it as a vacant property. They were valuing it with the rebuild. They were valuing. Then there was an old structure that was actually getting torn down that they're like, oh, is that going to stay? It was very convoluted. I don't think I was working with the right person. We ended up not going with them, and it did not cost us $40,000. It wasn't like $2,000, but it certainly wasn't $40,000. And so building the right team, my point in saying all this is that, do you know your local market and what the needs of that local market is? I think that's number one. Can you mitigate your risk? That's number two. But I do believe you're providing housing for people. There's always a need for people to live in quality housing. That's never going to go away in the life, until I die, right? That's never going to be like not a need. However, at what rent, at what cost? I don't think, dear, enough people look at supply and demand. Why was I so excited about this property? Because there's only 5 properties on the river. There's only so much riverfront property that is needed in this community that has a little more of like a luxury feel. Now, people might say you're doing a luxury build. That's very risky right now. I don't feel like it's risky. Not in this community, not with what I know. Would I feel that way in a different community? Maybe, but I know this community, right? So I think there's
and the
always
buyer for luxury too is different when you look at the buyer. They're not affected as much as someone looking at mortgage loan interest rates. They might be buying all cash.
Correct. That's a very good point. And so you have a little more of a limited pool, but you also have a different. This is someone's second home. I'm building someone's second home. I'm not building someone's primary residence. There's no way. So my point in saying all that is, depending on the market, you're mitigating the market, but you're also mitigating the asset class. And most people do it the opposite, where they'll say, even now, is it a good time to buy a short-term rental? It's like asking, is it a good time to buy a multifamily? Totally depends. Are you buying it 50% on the dollar? Maybe. Are you buying it in a growing economy with rent increases? Sure. Right. It really depends. Are you in more of a depressed market, or are you more in an appreciation kind of growth market? Are jobs coming to the town? Or are they leaving? That all makes a difference in terms of the asset class. I know some investors who are transitioning, they're a little done with like residential, right? Dealing with self-managing, even with all the apps and systems, they're just kind of getting burnt out, especially women in our community who have a lot of property. They're transitioning to commercial. They see that as a good time to pivot because of what they're kind of experiencing on the residential side. Other people getting into the residential. So I think if you could always make the numbers make sense, right? Depending on I think real estate's obviously a very safe bet. I've been investing for 20 years. We are selling one of our best performing assets because we raised money and we have it with investors, and it was time to sell. We're going to redeploy that into some passive opportunity because I'm at a season of life that, okay, what is my time worth? What is my energy worth? What is the return I'm looking for? Where do we want to be financially, like as we grow our own wealth? And those are all important things. So knowing your own personal goals along with where the market is and what's kind of happening in the market are both important. So that's how I'd answer that. But I do believe people get really enamored with the national news versus knowing what is actually happening in their local market and where is their opportunity, especially supply and demand. Because the people that are struggling, there's oversupply. And honestly, I don't know who's struggling when you're on the better side of the supply and demand equation. Again, just basics, right? Basic
Economics, like
economics. This
economics
is not like,
101.
I don't think people think that versus like, oh, is it a good time to buy an Airbnb? Or I feel like it's a bad time to buy. Well, such a loaded question, right? I don't own any Airbnbs, to be honest, but I would never answer that, even if I did, because it really depends on the
Yeah,
market.
true. It all depends on the numbers, right? It can work as long as the numbers work in any market, as long as it's a good deal with the with numbers that work, right? Then it makes sense. You did touch on one question that I did want to ask, and that was goals. And now you mentioned season time of your life and having these goals. How do you set boundaries so that you can achieve the goals that you want?
It's a great question. I think the first question to ask yourself if you're listening to this is, what's my relationship with boundaries? I'll answer it for me personally, but I do think a lot of women that I've met can struggle at times with boundaries. We either have none of them, or I've met someone who have so many of them, there's no flexibility. I'd highly recommend Boundary Boss by Terry Cole. She was one of our keynote speakers at our Investor Con, I think 2 years ago. And she was
I was
amazing.
there. She was
Yeah, she was
amazing.
great. She was great. One of my favorites by far out of all the years, right? You start to think about all the different speakers, and her book really goes into again, having too many or not enough. And where did that come from? And a lot of it stems, right? So for me, I'm a very service oriented person. I like to help everyone, whether I know you, I don't know you, really doesn't matter. I just like helping people. And I've had to not that I don't help people, because that's a kind of like a core need I have. I don't think I could ever exist in the world and not help someone or feel like I'm helping. That's really important to me, not at the cost of my own life or my own boundaries either, though. So I've incorporated boundaries in a way that I never have probably in my 30s. So for me, the boundaries have been incredibly important for me to keep being who I am, right? Wanting to serve and wanting to expand. I think the key is like the scheduling. When I schedule things, I allow myself to kind of honor that boundary. For example, I'm going to work out after, my day's over, like take a break at 3:00 and go for a run. If I don't have that on my calendar, I feel guilty because I have like 10 more things on my to-do list that actually could keep me quite busy till the evening. However, if I keep doing that, I'm not honoring the boundary of making sure my cup is full. And I know when my cup isn't full, I'm no good to anyone. Because I've done that where I run myself ragged and then I become really resentful and I'm not a happy camper. So I fiercely protect, right? The basics, my vitamins, like spiritual time in the morning, exercise, getting outside, taking my dog for a walk, spending time with my kids.
You have a meditation program, Investor Plus.
I do. We do.
Yeah.
We do. Because it's so important, right? The meditation. So I think someone told me once, feel the guilt and do it anyway. Because you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel, I should be doing so many other things, but you have to feel guilt and do it anyway. And I think that for me created space to actually honor the boundary, honor the schedule, and to do it anyway, especially when it comes to working out or something for myself that I'm going to be the only one that benefits from.
Thank you for that. It's so important. Mental health is so important. To achieve your goals, you really need to be in the right space to be able to get there.
And I'd take it one step further. I have a therapist. I have a coach. I get the support that I feel like I need so that I could be like a better version of who I am. And it doesn't just happen. No one just wakes up that way. They work at it, right? They take the time. They know what they need. For me, I love sitting on my back porch, watching the leaves fall and just having a cup of tea. That fills my cup. That's something that's really important to me because if I'm doing that, I'm peaceful. And when I have a busy day and I was just recording a lot of content, and when I'm recording a lot of content, it could drain me, right? Because I'm really thinking about what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, right? So then I just like take a break and have that moment. So again, dear, it's all about really knowing thyself and being around other women who can reflect that to you. I think it's really hard in women's 30s, 40s, 50s to figure that all out by yourself. I really do. And not that it's not impossible, but I do think that's why I'm so passionate about InvestHER and creating community and being in community so that you have a mirror a bit in front of you to show your greatness, or quite honestly, show you where you need to be a little more admitting that you need to step up on something in your life, right? Or a boundary you're not honoring. It's hard to do all that yourself. It's hard to be your own walking around with a mirror, if you will. I don't know many people like that. That's why I fiercely believe that if we don't have community, we just get into our own ruts. When we have a community, women will call you out. Hey, you talked about this last year at InvestorCon. You wanted to do what X, Y. Not meanly, but that's what we need more of in a really kind, supportive way, but still call each other out. And accountability supports the growth versus, didn't you talk about this last year? No one wants to talk about the same thing every year. I mean, I don't want to do that. So community is key. It's hard to do it on your own.
I love the investor community. It's grown so much, right? So how has it grown from when you first started and now it's a huge community and now you're seeing it from the wide angle view, from your point of view now, and you're seeing all these things. How have you seen it change and where do you see it going?
Yeah, great question, right? When we started, we really had the mission, okay, we really want to empower women to live financially free lives. That was our mission. Our mission hasn't shifted. We've gotten more refined and clear with who we're serving, how we're serving them, right? And where do we see the future going? In the past, we had over, because you led one of them, we had a number of meetups, 55 at one point where women came together. I think the meetups served a great purpose and we want to almost get back to more in-person events. The big shift though, is that we're very focused on, okay, what are the pains that we're looking to solve for women? So it's not all women about all issues, all problems. We're more refined with who we're looking to serve. And it's a very particular woman. She's driven. She's ambitious. She's not shying away from wealth building, but she's getting in her own way. There's a lot of time constraints, whether because she has a full-time profession and she's doing this on the side, or she's doing this full-time. She has all the roles. She's doing the money, raising the money, managing construction, fill in the blank. So or it's a woman who wants to be more passive. And she's, doing very well for herself in the professional world, like the dentists, the doctors. So we're really clear on we're serving active and passive women investors. And we're also very clear on what's the journey, right? What's the experience? And so we know that in-person makes a difference. So what we're doing even more, we're leaning into is obviously we have InvestorCon, that's continued to be an annual event. We're doing more curated events with our mentees. So we have a mentorship program called Strive, and that's for women who've done 5 to 10 deals or more. But we're going to be doing more because we did this a couple of months ago. We did a retreat with about 10 of our mentees and just masterminded, solved each other's problems, supported them in their journey, really got into deep stuff with all of them. And then that's kind of like Sunday of the weekend, we had all women in that community come out that were also those driven women who had some deals they were doing and want to be around like-minded in a curated sort of environment. So kind of like mini investor cons, to be honest, we're going to be leaning more into more in-person curated events where it's a very, really supporting the women that are on that path to growing and expanding themselves. Not that newbies come to our conference, we want to support them. And it's not even about newbies, it's the mindset. It's like, I'm ready to take that action. I'm ready to move the needle. That's more of the mindset than anything else. So I think the key is that hasn't changed, but we're just refining and seeing, okay, who are we attracting? Who do we want to serve? And who doesn't speak to what we're doing? I think early on also, we came into this with real estate investing as the goal. And what really focused on our conference, everything we're doing is it's business, it's real estate investing, but it's also mindset. So for example, we're doing a masterclass next week on really buying back your time. We have a quiz that women can take of how much time am I wasting? And how much time do I need to really think through of where can I find more time? Literally buy more time back so I can stop doing it all themselves. That's not necessarily real estate investing tactics. That's more of running my business. So I think, again, early on, it's more like the real estate strategies, not that we don't speak to those and still lean into that. We're both active investors still. And though it's about running that business. So I think that has grown as a pillar, as not just education, but also having thought leaders and other people talk about, right? Building something that you can, don't have to be running every day. That's where a lot of women are struggling with. Systems, processes, teams, leadership, right? That's the kind of piece, the content and the community we're also building, not just kind of real estate education per se. So that's evolved. I think too, we are really leaning into what tech, because we have Investor Plus, what tech can we enable that really creates efficient networking for women across the country from a efficient perspective. And then where can we really lean into high level curated in-person events where women get a ton out of meeting one another that are very similar, like-minded. So we're kind of leaning into both because now more than ever, everyone's totally tech and they don't even know how to talk to people in person.
Yeah. Now it's like, let's ask ChatGPT what to say.
Right, exactly. And though we're leaning into very intentional, curated opportunities to invite women to come out and to support each other and to not just lollygag, right? To really have a deep conversation on how they can grow, their wealth on their own terms and not just get a tactic or a strategy per se. All those things are part of the growth, but it's not why we exist. Because quite honestly, there's so many communities, there's so many groups, there's so many fill in the blank that you can get all those. I think what makes us different and what I really cherish is, really standing up for women to ask for what they want and need. And sometimes women are like, wow, I never realized. As a woman once that was talking on our mastermind, she said she was upset about an appraisal. I mean, everyone, if it comes in lower, everyone's upset about their appraisals that come back, right? And after a few questions, she realized that she was most upset because she was placing her value on that appraisal. So the property wasn't just appraised. She was being appraised. Very different. And not that because we're psychoanalysts, we're not psychoanalyzing people. However, we're just asking questions and women are in a space that they can actually answer them in a way that serves their life. Think about that impact on her life. She's like, I never even thought that I was actually putting myself as the appraisal versus just the property. Now, tactically, we can give you strategies on how to increase your appraisal. No question, right? We've done that numerous times. We all have, but that second part's the harder one, right? That's the personal one. That's the deeper work. And that's the work I love doing. That's the work that I love that our community stands for versus it just like these tactics, or we could have just kind of we couldn't have listened and just said, yeah, do this, doing this. Okay, who's next? We didn't do that because we could see in her demeanor, right? She was upset. And I think women hold a lot in. And that's what I love about our community, that gives women space to not put your best face forward. It's like being real and authentic, right?
That's all really touching. And it's really the mindset, the being real, being authentic, and really understanding what is it deeply that is affecting you.
The question we ask so many women, and the question I'll say here if folks are listening is, and I'll say this to my kids, what's coming up for you? Because sometimes women know what's coming up for them. They just don't always articulate it, and they're not always thinking it because they're in action mode. They're in doing mode. So the question allows them to stop and say, I'm really pissed about this, or I'm really upset about this, or I don't. It's a deeper kind of level question. I ask my kids that instead of telling them I don't know what's coming up for them, but I want them to be able to articulate. There's something else here. It's not just you're upset about not doing well on this test. Something else is coming up for you. They'll say, here's what's coming up for me. So now I don't ask them. My son, who's 11, he'll just tell me. He's like, Mom, let me tell you what's coming up for me here. And I love that,
That's
right? Because now I'm teaching them a dialogue to be emotionally aware of how they feel and the meaning that they're making of something. And that to me is priceless, right? If we can all do that a little bit more versus just going on to the next thing or being annoyed about this and now moving into another meeting. You think about that, right? We're always bringing so much baggage to every conversation, to every moment of our lives versus just saying what's coming up for me, especially when you feel like something's off and you don't feel aligned. Something's off here.
Well, Liz, we're heading towards the end of our time. I always like to end with a few rapid fire questions.
Let's do it. I love it.
What would you tell someone, a woman that is scared to get started, maybe in her business, in real estate, investing, anything, and who's stuck and in fear? What would you tell her?
I would tell her to think of a moment in your life that you did something that you were proud of, because all of us, right? All the women listening have a moment that they're proud of, that they achieved something out of nothing. We forget those moments when we are moving into something new. It's almost like none of those moments exist, but they actually do. So tap into the greatness you already have and don't do it alone. That's why we've created InvestHER. Don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone. What's one thing you'd tell your 25-year-old self?
So much. I would tell her one thing that's funny and one serious thing. I'm going to tell you the funny thing. Get better makeup. I was wearing the wrong makeup for a long time, the wrong shade, the wrong everything. So I say, just go and invest in better makeup. Please do yourself a favor.
Invest in yourself.
Yeah, invest in yourself. That's number one. Don't be so cheap. Yeah. The second thing I'd tell her is to really put herself first and create more boundaries. I didn't even know. I laughed at people that had boundaries. I thought they were being really anal, honestly, when I was in my 20s. I thought it was like, wow, that's rude. But I wish I embraced boundaries earlier in life. However, that was my path that I needed to go through. But it would have made a difference, I think. But maybe I wouldn't be who I am either.
Thank you so much, Liz, for this. It was great to have you. This was an awesome conversation. What is coming up next? And of course, where can we find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've a lot going on. The real estate InvestHER.com. We have our, love to invite the one listening to come to our conference because that is our annual event.
It's an amazing conference. It is the best women's real estate conference. I'm just going to promote that.
Well, you're a sweetheart. Thank you. It's just like no other. I'm biased, but it really is about 2.5 days. We're going to have it, just quick little, some information. It's all going to be about buying time back. So we have 2.5 days, June 14th to the 16th, amazing speakers coming, both on the entrepreneur side / business side, real estate investing, on the market and where things are headed, and obviously on mindset. We have from a health perspective, we have like women who've built multiple businesses and sold them, keynoting, and then just core real estate on raising capital and AI bots and all the above. So it's going to be a phenomenal 2.5 days, June 14th to the 16th, but you can learn more about it. It's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, at a beautiful resort as well. So check that out. It's on our website, therealestateinvesther.com. But I'd also say go to our website /trainings. And we have free trainings every month. We have free events that we're doing. Justin and I are personally doing one on the buying your time back, high level trainings. We move quick. We give women action steps, and a lot of it's free. So check that out. But definitely would love to meet you and help you in any way we can.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely see you at InvestorCon next year.
Can't wait. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for joining today's episode of Invest in Rome. If you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend. New episodes dropping weekly. Like, follow, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Dear No. Keep investing, keep roaming, and keep living the life you deserve.